All right, so I get this question a lot, and I mean like every stream, 2 or 3 times sometimes. This is one of the most common questions people have right now. And to make a long story short, my answer to you is download the game, try it. And I mean that sincerely. I honestly will give you my true answer here in a moment. The game is in maintenance right now, undergoing yet more upgrades and modifications and things like that. But there is a lot coming down the pike here on this on DanChro, and it's all good stuff. Now, my TLDR answer on this is you're literally asking me right now is I don't know, Longhorn Flows Filet as good as A5 Wagyu? Like, apples to apples here, guys. Apples to apples. So we're going to jump over here into the, all this, what's going on over here, all the updates that are coming with the update tonight and in the near future. But the reality is we had a really, really, really good with DanMemo, okay? DanMemo was one of, if not the best gachas that was out at the time and probably will ever be, if I'm frank. The free-to-play life was completely insane. Like, I don't even know how they had a... I mean, I do know, like, there's a certain amount of psychology for it, but with how good the free-to-play life was, it was very difficult to see how you had whales. But obviously, there were whales. That was what kept the game going. The free-to-play life was, I mean, phenomenal. The fact that you got, the featured unit all of the time was insane. Now, speaking specifically to the gacha system in this game has gotten significantly better. It's not perfect, but it's never going to be as good as DanMemo. No game, at least not for a very long time, is going to be as good as DanMemo. The thing, though, is there was kind of a caveat to that, and that's that when it came to units in DanMemo, you had to 100% those units. Those units had to be maxed and broken for them to be really viable. Now, over here, you can get one of a unit. You don't have to max them or break them. There are benefits to it. Short of, like, the Festa units, they're not, mandatory. The Festa units, I would argue, have a really big curve to MLB, but A0 to MLB is an insane curve on those two units from the anniversary. But a general unit at A0 with full ability system is still extremely usable. Most units are completely viable at A0, and that is the one thing that DanMemo didn't really have in spades. If we did a 55% run, it was a rugged run. Now, they did upgrade this recently. They added in a whole bunch of things, but we now have a pity system. Admittedly, you are 16 summons in, or 8 if you're paid, but it still is a really respectable, not perfect, but respectable pity system. Could be better, but you do get a lot of stuff along the way. Now, that is mostly the summon portion of this. There is one other thing that I do want to talk about, and this actually it's right here, the anniversary stuff. During 4th anniversary, every week we got a new unit, which on paper sounds really nice, but after a while with that happening during the anniversary, it got tiresome. It really became way too much to handle, way too many units in way too rapid a succession, and even the whales were like, we can't keep up, this is crazy. I think this goes a little too far to the other side. We just got a unit to kind of commemorate the launch of Season 5, and we're going to get another one in December, unfortunately. We do have to wait that long. And plus, we kind of thought initially these units were going to go in the general pool. Based on what I'm reading here, they might not. They might be time limited, though I don't think it... I think originally it alluded to the fact that they weren't. At least that was my takeaway from it. But at the end of the day, a medium between these two would be best. I think they've got a little too conservative on it, and I think during Season 4, DanMemo was maybe a little bit too aggressive. But at the same rate, it's just two different ways of doing things, right? meeting somewhere in the middle would be perfect. But what they've done is they've taken the lessons that, places where DanMemo wasn't doing so great, and I think they've kind of taken them, they've gone a little too far the other direction with it, but at least they're learning. The other thing you got to take away from this is when DanMemo was closing, remember, these guys were originally going to drop right before the anniversary, and then they held off for 3 months. This is a company that pays attention. And some people might not like to hear this. Some people have argued with me on this, but they clearly do pay attention. They knew to wait until right before the anniversary is over to drop this game. And essentially what that did is that was able to pick up a whole bunch of new players when the hype was at its peak, right before we could get kind of that lull period after the anniversary. They picked everybody up fresh and new for the game. So once again, try the game. They've done so many incredible improvements over the last year. It really is worth at least giving it a shot. But once again, talking about them paying attention, we have noticed that in the Battle Arena and Magic Stone Scramble, the PvP-ish areas of the game, that it's kind of stagnated. And they're implementing right now things to de-stagnate, for lack of a better way to put it, the game, to encourage people to use different units and things like that. It seems like there's going to be like bounty units and stuff of that nature, just to encourage you to swap up your teams. I think they initially said that there were going to be that, and then they just really didn't do a whole lot with it. But at the same rate, that is going to help out drastically. The other thing that they've never done that DanMemo did all of the time were free-to-play units that drop from events. They're adding that. Now, the one place I will be completely honest with you, story here pales in comparison to DanMemo. However, I'm comparing endgame DanMemo to year one here. If we go back to year one in DanMemo, literally the US version of the game had just dropped. We didn't have the EU version. We didn't have the Asia version, short of Japan. It was JP only. And then in April, after the game launched in June, the prior year, we finally got the US version. So it was a little less than a year before we got the US version of the game. Being a year here versus a year there, I'd argue that the stories here are a little bit better than the stories we got at a year point in DanMemo, only specifically talking about the anniversary. The anniversary story here was absolutely fantastic. The anniversary story for year one DanMemo was kind of, Grand Day was okay, but it wasn't mind-blowing. It wasn't the greatest thing I'd ever seen. But there is, what I'm basically trying to say is, this game is growing and is getting better. It's not perfect. DanMemo wasn't even perfect. But you're really comparing like the best of the best to the new shiny version that's trying to stand up to it. Your bar, when you compare it to DanMemo, is so incredibly high. I don't think there's anything currently on the market that could even compare. So let's bring it down a notch and let's enjoy what we have here, because there are some things that are improving or that have improved, and they're improving the game every single day. Give it a shot. Try it out. If you don't like it, it is what it is. I would argue most people right now will very much enjoy the game if you can understand that the gacha system is a completely different animal, and a non-duped unit is still very, very viable. That's the one big caveat. But that's my take. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments down below as always, and I'll be back with more. I mean, maintenance should be ending any minute, so we'll have to come back and talk about that.